Really quick, I just want to wrap up your history. Your mother died of cancer 10 years ago. That's when you started to emotionally eat. But I want to preface that period with the fact that you are a competitive horse rider. What did you do with horses? Did you do like what did you do specifically? Because you know there's barrel racing and there's also
I've jumpers.
so jumping. So it's very much posture and controlling the animal, and there's a lot that goes into the looks of what you're doing, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know if a
But
lot
I'm
of
sure now that I talk to you, I emotionally ate way before my mother died.
you did.
I'm sure I've been eating emotionally all my life. I mean, I'm sure on some level.
Yeah. Yeah, but you might have noticed that the maybe more of a binging occurred, like the
Exactly.
actual like where you're intentionally doing it in excess and accepting fat gain. Do you think that might be the big deciphering factor in when you started, when you say I really started to emotional eat when she died intentionally?
Yeah.
Meaning
I wanted to hurt myself.
you knew you were going to gain weight. You knew it and you were okay with it and you said, I'm okay.
Yep, and then I hated myself for it.
Well, here's where the hate comes from. You get to the place where you're like, all right, this is enough. Enough is enough. Now I'm going to go back. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to do what I promised, right? Which is, I'm going to go do this diet. And you flew across the country and you did this kind of an extreme program.
Really, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so that's pretty much your history. You know, and what I had said is that horse riding makes sense because it's that physical, you get a lot of positive reinforcement for the physique that you have. You're 5'8" and you're very petite. So, you know, I'm about 5'9" and I am around 150 and have been around 150 since 8th grade. So you're 5'8", not much smaller than me, and your weight stays around 120. That's pretty thin. Naturally.
I've always been.
Yeah, it was like supernatural, petite, tall, model type body.
Right.
Yeah. So you got a lot of positive reinforcement. You got a lot of compliments. It was a big part of probably why you were so successful. You met the physique of that sport. Okay. So looking the part became a big part of your identity. It became a big part of how you felt in control. Was it the one thing that would you agree, is it the one thing that you felt like that was the one thing you didn't have to deal with? At least you didn't have to deal with being overweight.
Yeah. And that was fine. It was just this, I could deal with this. It was great. It always worked. It was always there. I trusted my body. And then I decided to torture it one day.
Yeah, well, when your mother passed away, and do you remember that first time that you said, you know what, screw it?
I don't.
It just slid itself in there. It must have been, is it in the evenings? Are the evenings the hardest? I need you to go back to that period of time 10 years ago. When was the hardest time for you?
Yeah, it must have been the evenings.
Okay. That's the feeling I'm getting, that it might have not have been like when you think of how you binge today is probably not how you were before. It may have been you sitting on the couch with a bag of chips, just eating them and eating them and eating them and eating. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it was always vanilla ice cream or frozen yogurt.
Yeah, yes. Okay, I get that. And before your mother passed away, you didn't necessarily intentionally do that.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a sense of that. And then what probably happened too while you were doing that is you might have actually started dieting immediately that day. So one of the things that people with body image perfection ideology, because they've had the perfect body, they tend to think they'll just undereat the next day. Well, that's pretty much everybody, whether you're super morbidly obese or super thin. You are probably undereating and then found that the food tasted even better at nighttime. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
To where you underate, knowing that you were pretty excited you were going to eat that tub of ice cream.
Yeah.
Had you not recalled that before? How does
No,
how does this feel to talk about
it feels
this?
horrible. It feels horrible. It feels like I tortured myself. I let myself down. I just was so nasty to myself.
All right, I need you to stop being so mean to yourself. Stop judging what's going on. You really need to look at what you went through and what you really were feeling void of at the time. And
Yeah.
did you know how to grieve the loss of your mother? Did you have any idea that it was going to
No.
be as hard as it was?
No, I had no idea. And I had no idea it would take as long as it did. And now when I look back, it's 10 years. I can't believe how much it affected me. Like, I can't believe it.
Okay, well, you say that now, but I want you to put anybody in your circumstance with the feelings you had and the pain you had. Wouldn't you agree that your behavior is what anybody would do under the same?
Yeah.
So is it really that, should you be that judgmental about it?
No, not at all.
Okay. So is it,
Not at all.
okay. Now,
Not at all.
I would agree. You need to be aware of what the type of pressure you were under without an awareness of your capacity. I think that's really what creates this discontent, is all of the grievance and the lack of, like, how do you prepare for the death of your mother? You know, I'm dealing with that right now.
You don't.
I don't think you can.
You can't.
I'm not sure you really can. And if you could,
You can't. There's nothing I can say to you to prepare you. There's nothing I can say to make you feel better. Nothing.
so knowing that, so you're talking to me, I'm 36, okay? My mom was diagnosed with a glioblastoma in the brain, the worst type of brain cancer possible. She is now around the 2-year mark, and she is getting, now I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. Not that there's anything wrong with crying, because I cry all the time. What would you tell me to at least, what did you need to hear that you have the wisdom of? Because you have this wisdom about the grieving process, okay? What did you need to hear?
I would say hug her, and you will be okay. You will survive it. It's horrible, but you will survive it. Just know you'll survive it.
So if you had those periods of time in the evening times as you're going through the grief and you're going through all of that pain, right? Would you have just allowed yourself to cry?
Yeah. Yeah. But the thing is that when you're in it, it's so scary when you cry like that, because you're in such a dark hole that you don't know how you're ever going to get out of it. You don't see any, it's like being in a silo and you want to grab onto the rungs to pull you up, but there's nothing there.
Okay, I know what that feels like.
Yeah.
My mother hasn't passed, but I know what that feels like, and it feels like there is no hope, and there is no hope.
Yeah. So then how do you find hope without food?
Well, that's the question you would have had to have figured out, is if you took this information, if you could talk to yourself 10 years ago, and you would have said, you know what, you just sit with it, just be with it.
Yeah.
Express it. That's another thing. You probably didn't know how to express that. You are now looking back and now expressing those feelings. If you could have said, I feel like I am in a dark, dark, dark grave that has no means to get out. There's no way to get out. Would that have helped you?
Yeah.
Okay.
You will get out one day. These rungs will appear.
Yeah, this is just a representation of how much I loved my mother. That's all that is. That's huge.
And then, yeah. And then going on in life, and then it like becomes a way to get through stress. And like I'm moving now or selling my house, and the grief process of it yet again is the same. It seems like the grief process is always the same. It's like a feeling of hopelessness. It's however deep the grief is, but yet that deep grief of your mother's death always is kind of like the belly of the grief, if that makes sense.
Well, it does make sense because you never really got out of that. You basically said, well, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to dig this grave. For me, it was a deep, deep, deep grave. You said you're like in a big silo. It would be like digging it wider. Like if I'm going to be down here, at least I'm going to make it bigger.
Yeah, exactly. I'm going to make it as big as I possibly can.
And that is what you've done. So basically, I'm talking to you 10 years later, and I'm going to try to help you get yourself out.
Good, thank you.
So I can't get you out. I can't.
I'll get myself out. I just need to learn how.
Yeah, and I think it really starts with grieving. You may look back and say, "Oh, I've grieved my mother's death. I feel so much better about it." I don't necessarily think you've really grieved it. Like gone into that and allowed yourself the fear of death.
Yeah.
I think you have a lot of fear of death.
Tremendous, huge. Huge fear of death.
Mm-hmm. And within yourself. And I think that fear of death within yourself is really holding you back from your mother's death, for fully grieving and accepting your mother's death. Because you couldn't fully grieve and accept death within yourself. I'm getting very clear message there. That is your way out, because you can look at this and go, it's obviously where this started. You can see that you've just created conditioned habits in most areas of your dealing with stress at this point, and it all has a foundation developed around the separation of the spirit and the body. You identify very much so with the body. I think a lot of this has to do with how important your body has been in your lifetime.
And it still is important. I work in...
Oh my God. Well, no, duh. That's why you're so...
freaked out.
Yes, that's why this is such a detrimental thing. It's very threatening to this relationship between you and your body. And you're so afraid to lose this identity of your body that you're going to defend it, even though it makes no sense to you intellectually. And the path, I think, for you to go is through a death path. What I'm saying is, what would it take for you to be okay letting your body go? If death was knocking at the door for you, what would it take for you to willingly give this body up? What would you need to go through in your mind to not be so afraid? You know what I'm saying? It'd be like you're willing to give it up. You're willing to sacrifice this life and go through that panic attack. That there's a definite sense of murder. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
For you to willingly let it, to separate from your body, that sense of I'm being murdered, that that severe panic feeling that you get. Yeah. What would it take for you to say, you know what, I am willing to hand it over?
I have no idea.
Okay, I have that feeling because I've done it, and it is so, I cannot describe the type of humility that it takes to say, I am okay leaving this life.
I, I, I am okay. I mean, it's terrifying, but I'm okay. I'm okay with it. As long as I know my animals would be taken care of, I'm okay.
That's so true.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they're okay, I'd be fine to let go of this.
Okay, so what does that tell you about your animals and what their role is?
Tells me that they're my little rocks. They're my,
There's something you're living for. They might be something you're also using to feel secure.
oh, but they'll be fine without me.
Totally. You know that. You know that intellectually. We're speaking to this emotional area of the brain. Okay?
They'll be fine without me.
Oh, absolutely. And you know as well as you know enough people that would take care of your animals just as lovingly as you would.
Yeah. So what would it take for me to give this up? I'd be okay giving it up.
Do you feel like your mom was there before she passed?
No, she was never around. She was competing with me and being
Even to the day that she passed away.
No, then we were friends by then.
Okay, that's what I'm talking about. You just identified your mother with this old ego mom. Let's talk about the truth that she showed you. As she was dying and as she was going through this, that was the real her.
Yeah.
You need to identify with that. Don't identify with the her that was here that didn't appreciate the life she had. So that was her in living like you are right now. It's not fair to define her by that. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
At all. You need to let that go because that was her being ungrateful and unaware of how much she actually loved you. When death comes calling, when death is at the back door, no, to the front door, okay? And there's no way to get rid of it. What do you think it felt like for her? To know that there was no way out.
Oh, I think she just was devastated. I think she was so sad, and I think she had so much remorse.
Yeah, I would agree because she realized how messed up it was.
Yeah.
That it was unfair. Did she leave in any way telling you how much she loved you?
Yeah.
Do you think
Told
she
me
was
the night the last night I saw her.
Do you think that she was desperate for you to know that to actually know that feeling?
Probably in some way, yes.
Well, how desperate do you feel about your animals? Because you love them, like
Yeah.
deeply.
In the same way I feel about me.
Okay, that would be the goal.
I mean, I'm desperate for me to feel better and not to be in this blender of emotions and food and.
Well, you're going to have to give up this attachment to the body because your behavior with food has a lot to do with fear of death, fear of the physical form, fear of letting go of your ego identity with the body, fear of who you are if you don't have the same body. You know what I'm saying? You have an image of what your body needs to look like for you to feel secure again. Who are you without that perfect image? If you erase that body that you think you need to have to feel good about yourself and to feel cured of this emotionally and for you to feel like you've got your shit together again and that you're organized again and that you have a sense of freedom again and that you're living without this heavy burden on your shoulders. If you could erase that image and not make the image the way you get out of that big hole, that would be like death. That would be a death. It'd be a death of the old identity that you attached yourself to. That's why I said I think your route through this is actually going through the death experience. What does it take to say, I give this up? I am submitting my body to this fear of death. I'm going to let it go through it. Even though it feels like I'm someone's going to kill me. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go limp and let them just kill me.
And that's how it feels like. I just don't know how to do it. But
Well,
it's
I'm
like
telling you how to do it right now. The last sentence I just said is how you do it. You
I
go,
don't understand that.
well, when you get that feeling, that panicky, oh my God, I'm going to die. What you're doing is you're finding a way away from it. You're fighting it.
So just sit in it.
That's what I'm telling you. You need to, because you're eating, the way you're eating, that's what you're doing to get rid of that pain. That's what you did when your mother died. That's how you got rid of that feeling. And yet that whole eating thing is digging, it makes it deeper. You're getting deeper. It's not just wider.
I understand. Because
Yeah.
that's when I feel it, and that's when I go to food.
Yes, that's what you're doing. And it's like, you're, for me, and this is when people usually transfer their compensations or addiction. Addiction is a form of compensation, okay? People do, so they feel that way and they'll go, well, I can't eat anymore, so I'm going to go exercise. So now you have an exercise thing. You're in the same hole and now you have to exercise.
I just want to sit in it, hold myself, and cry.
You need to shut every door, every access out, every option possible to alleviate that feeling. You need to shut the door. If we go into brain chemistry, your brain is seeking for you to find shelter, okay? Because it believes you. It believes what you're saying. It thinks actually that you're about to die. And you know as well as I do, intellectually, you're not going to die. When you said you have to know there is a way out. You have to know that it will pass. You aren't dead. But when it comes to this situation, it feels like it is life-threatening. But what it's threatening is the life of the identity you had. It's this, it really, I think for you, when you're in it, you're going to identify a lot more of where this comes from. I can't do it outside of you. I can do as best I can with the information I get and just the feedback you're giving me. But when you're in that space where you can feel death calling and you know that you need that food and the food could alleviate that pain very quickly, can't it? And you slow down and you make the choice. I'm not going to do it.
That's the key, the choice.
That, the door to get out is right there. In fact,
You just have to have the door shut.
and you're not going to do it. Think about what that takes, what type of humility that takes to just sit there.
Every time I think now about starting anything or whatever, as you say, the diet, I feel sick. I feel like my insides are trembling. And it's exactly what you said. It feels like it's going to die. It has to die to go on some sort of diet, which is so, like, I hear myself say this and I can't put it together, but I know it, the feeling. And you're right. I just have to sit there. And it's not a diet because a diet doesn't fix that.
No, a diet is a way for you to secure the physical identity of the thin body that you think you need to have to feel good about yourself. Right? That's all the diet is. But the problem is a diet it is essentially competing with this access to food. So I would assume that when the call of death shows up, you hate diets. They make you sick because they are in the way. So you're going to resent any diet. You'll be punished by most diets because they are keeping you from feeling safe and secure.
Exactly.
Even though they paint the illusion of security with the old thin identity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like this love-hate relationship between needing to diet to secure that old skinny body you think you need to feel good about yourself, And they hate of the diet because it is essentially keeping you from feeling or hiding from this feeling that you have of grief and death. This overwhelming sense of death.
Now that I'm like past the point. It's kind of like now I'm in this limbo phase of, because I don't want to diet. I want to deal with this. If that makes sense, I want to deal with it. But until we've spoken, I feel like I'm banging my head against a wall because I don't know how. And
well,
it's right, sit in that bad hell.
Yeah. Well, most people who have never, who've never had this type of experience, they think there is a way to describe the way to get out. Like there's a bullet list thing I'm going to go through with you, and this is your plan. This is your diet. This is the way you're going to get out of this relationship with food. Like you can hate being fat enough, right? If you hate being fat enough, that will keep you from eating, right? Have you ever said that to yourself? Yeah. Some of you have there.
Like everywhere they say,
I'll just keep on getting fatter, and that will keep me from eating this way.
Yep.
Now, you, in this discussion, you can look at me and go, you know what? Being fat has nothing to do with that feeling. That feeling was there when I was skinny.
Yeah, that feeling's always there. I was thinking about that last night. I was like, these same tears are still here from being fat or thin.
It's the same call of death. It's that same feeling that death is knocking. That is there, whether you're skinny or fat. It doesn't matter. The fact that you're going to diet does make you binge a lot more, though. You know, when you can say, well, I've always been using this food. I've been using this food to medicate, but since I've been dieting, and because I judge my body so much, I created this kind of side vortex of binging. So I get the call of death, I'm going to binge now. Before I didn't have to binge. But because I'm going to be dieting, I'm going to go ahead and give myself the liberty to eat a bazillion times more than I should and want to. Right?
Yeah, and my binging, like I binge, before I would binge 100%. Now maybe when I binge, it's like 20%. Like I've learned to say, okay, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, because it just sucks. There's no good thing that comes out of it. And would you say that has nothing to do with body fat, that it has more to do with the GI issues that you deal with? Like it's like a bad ramification. It's not just getting fat. It's you have bowel problems.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it is far more punishing than just getting fat.
Yeah. And now, my stomach with the leaky gut is so much better. I mean, the Lyme's disease, I'm on my second protocol, so I'm much better, and like I can feel my body kind of going back to normal. But and so I've been taking care of myself.
You're mending the relationship with the body, but you know as well as I do that is not the problem. Those are all consequential, and you can forgive it at this point, right? You can go, you know what? The body is healing itself. It is my body. This is the body you have. It's not like you're getting a brand new one in a week or so, right?
I don't want to get a brand new one. I love my body. I mean, honestly, I have a great body.
You do. I would agree. And it's worth caring for as if it's a child or an animal of yours. Wouldn't you agree?
And that is sad to me too. The fact that I never have loved it and appreciated it is heartbreaking to me. Like the fact where
okay, that's living in the past. You need to stop. Yeah. That's got to stop, because you didn't have this awareness in the past. So why would you hold yourself accountable to something you're aware of now that you weren't aware of before?
Okay, you're right.
I know. It was like me saying to you, well, anybody under the circumstance that you were under when your mother passed away, can you see that would be forgivable? You understand it. Someone who drinks alcohol to feel this, to get away from that feeling, doesn't it make sense to you?
Yeah, total sense to me.
If someone has that feeling of dire insecurity and porn is what makes them feel good about themselves, don't you get that?
Totally.
It's the same thing. It's the same call of death that we're running away from. And it's how we associate security to whatever addiction it is. And eventually your brain gets sucked into it. It starts to associate certain emotions psychologically to need of a certain narcotic. Whether it's a behavioral narcotic or an actual narcotic. You know, it is the emotional association. And you've just associated this security from that god-awful feeling to food. To your animals. You know, and what you're going to need to do is ask for the call of death. You want it. You want to develop what it's going to take to sit through it. You know, when it started was when your mom died. Maybe you go back to that and you recognize, well, if you could go through it again to the same extent, you needed to realize that that pain and grief was a representation of love and need and the meaning of how important she was in your life. That was as much as it feels empty and void, it's actually very full.
So full that you don't even want to touch it. You're like,
yes, it's like, and then when you're afraid of death and you feel that it is a separation, you feel that that your love for her is now disconnected. That you're dead, that you've gone through a death, that you're dying without her, that her death is continuing to creep over to you, but your view needs to flip to the other side. Actually, this painful feeling you had at that time, if I could have been there with you, this awareness of how deeply you loved and needed her, you probably didn't know, when you said to her she competed with you, part of you doesn't want to love her that much.
No, I want to hate her.
Okay, that's where this is coming from as well. You don't want to forgive her. You don't want to see her without your story of hate. What would your relationship be with your mother if she could start over today? If she could come back and redo this whole life? How do you think she would create? What type of relationship do you think she'd want with you?
Much different one.
Okay, why can't you just start there? A lot of this pain is coming from past, like looping in the brain that it's not still happening. Her behavior at the end it wasn't the same. Her relationship with you, it wasn't the same. But yet you keep this belief around who she is and who she was, and you keep this whole like, I'm angry at her. I don't want her. I don't need her. And when she dies and you realize, oh my God, she's one of the most important people that I need in this life, that's intense. And you don't want to have to admit it. You don't want to have to feel that type of pain. That type of pain is very exposing. And are you there? All right, we're having an issue. I hope this helps.
Nice to her.
Well, understand maybe where she's coming from so that when she's feeling inadequate compared to you, that she just needed to be loved.
Yeah.
She probably...
I know, I'm the same thing.
Yes. Yeah. What this has done for you is given you an opportunity to actually let go of a lot of false stuff.
Yeah.
And you're not letting it go. You're not letting this relationship go. And it's not allowing you to grieve. What I mean by the relationship is the persona, the whole belief around, your mother, the competition was about what?
was nothing. It was just about who was thinner, who was smarter, who had looked prettier. It was all bullshit.
It was really stupid. And in the end, would you say that she pretty much got over it?
Yeah. And she never understood. We had a huge fight before she died. And I said, I hate you. And she said, I don't understand why. She said, I know, but I don't understand why. So great. I mean, it just...
Okay, so I'm going to ask a question, and I'm going to want you to write this down. If you could answer that question right now, I think you need to talk to her. I think you need to answer that question for her.
Okay.
And I don't think you hated her. I think you hated this whole game.
I did, and that's what I hate in life. I hate
It's
games.
like,
I hate bullshit.
yeah, and fake and pretense and all of that stuff. And I think that you need to disassociate her from that game. That when you said to her, Mom, I hate you, that it really wasn't her, was it? It was this competition. It was this who's better than who, because really, if you could start over with her as well, don't you wish that you could just love each other? Be yourself and not try to beat each other, because essentially you were trying to be her.
We both were.
Yeah.
And now I'm trying to beat me, and it makes no sense because
Well,
I hate it.
You're competing with this belief system. It's like when you said, I hate my mother, and I said, well, wouldn't you agree that it's not her that you hated, it was this whole thing. It was this whole, it was the game that you were playing. It sucked. It took away from you loving her. It took away from your ability to really express and to recognize how much you actually just loved her.
Lord, and well, she had to offer. So I'm competing with this belief system, but yet it feels like I need to replace that belief system with something. Oh, my dogs are now all looking at the computer. They're
I know.
There's another dog. So cute. What kind is it?
Yeah, but that's my dog. He's sitting on the couch just barking at someone who just walked by.
So what do I replace that with?
Nothing. You need to get rid of that relationship.
Okay.
You need to rethink. And I think you need to express this to your mom. If you could talk to her today and tell this to her and just tell the truth. Mom, I wish that I could just be myself. I want to just be myself, and I want to love you as an individual. You know, if you have friends, don't you, that you just love them and they're awesome at certain things and you support them, and then they suck at certain things and you support them, and you're not judging them and you're not telling them they suck. You're just like, right? You let them be themselves. And they struggle and they succeed and you just love them for whatever it is. Right?
Yeah.
Your animals you do that with.
It's unconditional.
Oh yeah, you're like, it's not about you, is it? How the best friends that you do have, the loyalty you have them doesn't have strings attached. And what they do doesn't put you down or pull you up. It doesn't. Okay.
No, has nothing to do with me.
No. Now, your mom, I need you to see her the same way. Because I think this way you're feeling, that's what it's testing. It's like saying, I use religion. It's like you were raised in this system of thought. And for you to acknowledge that you don't like it, that it's not healthy, that you wouldn't want. If you had children, you wouldn't do the same thing. You don't believe in it. Your mom left the church.
Yeah.
When she was dying, she recognized that it was wrong. She left it. You stayed. You're still in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
For you to leave this belief system, now how do you feel good about yourselves? Because before it was always competing with something. Now it's all this like, I have to be better, I have to be better, I have to be... all of this internal competition and hatred and I suck and I got to be better, right? It's part of you
It's
still
right.
living in that. Do you think that your mother would, do you think that she wishes that this would be different?
Yes.
So if she could do it over, she wouldn't do this. She would not do it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think that it would be fair if you loved your mother, that you would live that life today with grace, knowing that you know that she would want you to live differently? That you can continue this life, same body, living in the way that she would love you to live, which is
Happiness and being nice to me and not having this pile of shit behind me.
yeah, and forgiving all of it, understanding it. It is understandable. And it does make sense. And you aren't crazy. And you weren't prepared. And under that relationship, you didn't know how to express that you hated the relationship. You loved her. You hated the relationship. It's not fair to define her death by that relationship at all. It is unfair for you to continue to feel hate for someone that you know loved you unconditionally. That was the truth. The truth is that she wanted you to she wanted you to have she wanted you to win.
Yeah, she did.
And winning is basically just saying I am winning. I don't have to earn it. It is just I am who I am. That you just being you is winning. And by the time she left, that's what she wanted you to hear. She wanted you to know how much you were already amazing. You didn't need to prove anything anymore.
No.
You couldn't hear it because you were still hating based on that relationship that was dead. That relationship died before she physically died.
Yeah, it did.
Mm-hmm. You kept it, but how can you do anything if you don't know how to express these feelings or aren't aware of it? We're talking about it today, and now you're like, it's becoming aware. And you can look back and go, no, duh. It doesn't make sense, and time doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and heal this because this is not going to go away. Living the same way and thinking the same way, I'm going to have to think differently. And the only way out of this is the way I went into it. Go back and allow that grim reaper to show up and hand it over. You can have it. Take this fake identity. Take this competition. I don't want to compete with anybody, especially my mother. Give it up. Hand it over and go through it. It's like saying, I'm going to strip all of my weapons. I'm going to bare my body. And I'm going to give it to you because that's how desperate I am.
Why is it so hard to give up the thought of the competition, the thought of the hatred? Why is that so hard to give up? Is it because
you're still competing? You're competing.
But is it so hard?
It's like saying I'm losing. I'm willing to lose. That's what you're. Could you imagine saying I'm willing to lose? I'm willing
just love each other.
to love each other. I'm willing to lose every competition with my mom. Because I would rather her live in adequacy. She can win. And I don't feel that I'm losing because of it. It's a game. Think of this literally like a stupid board game where someone is really serious about winning and you just go, oh yeah, they can have the win. They can win.
You can have it.
And just because I lose doesn't mean that I am less important. Just because they think they're more important for winning. Just because someone thinks they're more important for winning doesn't mean the people that lose are less important. That's just the way the person that won thinks their thoughts are not necessarily
So I am so
trustworthy.
scared that if I lose, I won't be important to her.
That's so important what you just said. I want you to say it as if I need you to think about it as if you are talking to her. Mom,
I'm so scared that if I lose, you won't love me.
that you're not going to love me. What do you think she would say?
So you're nuts. She would just say, no, of course I love you. It doesn't matter. So now I have
She
to let
would-
myself lose and be okay with the fact that I can lose.
That's
I
like
still have
leaving the religion. You're okay being a loser because you know it doesn't matter. Could you imagine how that would change your view of life and people?
Yeah, you don't waste time.
No, it allows you to really be more forgiving.
Forgive me.
Oh my God. Like the crazy thing is the only reason you need forgiveness is because you have these crazy beliefs in winning. You don't even, it's like if you stop believing that way.
So basically it's saying that winning has nothing to do with how I am seen or anything about me.
Nothing. That is a belief system. That's a belief around you have to prove yourself to be worthy. Right? And it's proof relative to what? Who are you competing with, right? Proof relative to what standard are you using? Is it such a high standard that it's impossible?
Of course, because it can't be possible. Because then if I win, she's not going to love me either.
Okay, that's the perfectionism that almost all addicts have. That's a belief system. That idea of I have to be adequate, which creates this idea of perfectionism. You judge very harshly, not just yourself, but people around you, based on this, they're not good enough. Well, at least I know I'm better than them, but I need to be better than that. You know, there's this crazy pecking order or hierarchy in this belief system that causes this type of thinking. And there's a huge amount of psychological danger to it. You're living this.
Scary.
Yeah, I mean, you are now living the downside to this belief system. And you know that this is what happens when people literally think that their value comes from moving up a pecking order and competing with everybody until they get to the highest one, which doesn't exist. It literally sucks your life into a whole different place that it shouldn't be.
Yeah.
You know? And this is cultural. Your mom isn't the only one that's this way.
No, I'm this way. So many people are this way.
Oh my God. Think of just most of America. Okay? Just consider that this is not the fault of your mother. This is a belief system that our culture teaches. Parents actually think that their children have to prove themselves.
Yeah, and you see it so much more now. I mean, it was so much worse when. It's so much worse now. It's terrifying.
It is so much worse. But then you hear the crazies that actually teach this stuff. They think the culture is way, way, way worse in terms of kids suck.
Yeah.
You know,
and they have no fun kids.
No. And those kids are usually the ones that have a lot of psychological illness.
I'm sure.
And they don't recognize that that's what they're doing. They're passing down the belief of inadequacy and that you have to earn adequacy. And it's all founded on the fact that your parents might not love you because they're negatively reinforcing poor grades, bad behavior. They're negatively reinforcing a lot of stuff and overly positively reinforcing winning right? And then these kids are left to feel inadequate all the time as adults.
Yeah.
It's like they grow up and this is continuing, you know? So when you look at how this turned out, it can make sense to you. It should be like, oh, you know what? It all lines up. You don't necessarily have to break it down. Everything is lining up. Even up to the whole dieting shit and all this stuff. It all should just make sense. And when you have that feeling of grief and pain and I can't handle this, you need to just choose to lose, essentially, and be okay with it. What would it take for you to put the white flag up? Put the flag up, the white one, and say, you can have it all. I would rather lose so that I can start over and live in a way that is true to who I am, that has nothing to do with anybody else.
That makes it easy. That makes it's like that. I can do that. I can say, okay, you know something? I've lost. I can't do this anymore.
Doesn't it feel good?
Yeah, it feels good.
And I'm not, and I don't care.
I don't care. Just take it.
Yeah, like you can have it. Take it. Take my clothes, take my money, take my hair, take my health, take my body. You can have it. But you cannot take the truth of my soul, the truth of who I am, and that is what makes me really valuable as a person. That soul is very valuable. And it's yours, right? Wouldn't you agree? That's the one thing that is true.
Yeah.
You can dye your hair, you can do plastic surgery, you can go win the lottery, you can buy the biggest house, you can have 50 cars, you can go get a PhD, you can do anything, right? You could be the most amazing philanthropist on the face of the planet and save like tons and tons and tons of like wells, and you can do anything. But really, it's all not even true of who you are. When it comes down to it, when death starts knocking on the door and it's time for your body to go be hijacked, what do you have left?
Just me.
And that's really the only thing you've had this whole lifetime. You're competing about all this external stuff that isn't even real. And I think that it's important for you, in relation to your mother, for you to actually live and feel the way you should about yourself, based around how she left this life. Because that is true. How much she loved you, how much she wanted you to know, that was real. That was the real her.
Yeah, the rest was bullshit.
Oh, totally. And you got to let that be gone, because that isn't the truth of who she is. That's the truth of the belief system that we teach in this culture. And she bought into it. And unfortunately, you were the only thing she had that she felt was important. You were important to her. Yeah. She wouldn't have competed with you otherwise. Under the belief system.
Yeah, makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
It's liberating. It's like, oh.
Yeah, and I think you need to have some time. And I think the next time that feeling comes, because do you remember what I said earlier? I said you're going to want to invite it. You're going to be like, all right, bring it on. I want that feeling, and I want to have nothing around me.
Yeah, I do want it. I do want it because you want to let it go now.
Totally, and you realize that every access to get away from it is the challenge. It's not the feeling, because that feeling isn't going to go away until you let it in. It's like, not only am I going to give you everything, I'm going to invite you in to stay.
And in a sense, so I can figure out to lose it, to take it, just take it, take it, take it. This is yours.
Yep, and you can have this body. But the soul is going to observe. Yeah, and that's how I did it.
Okay.
That's
I
it.
can do
And you
this.
know what's really amazing is when you don't allow any access out in any form, it goes away much faster. Meaning you don't transfer the addiction, you don't have addiction anymore. You know, you'll hear things like rewiring of the brain. I've used the word, it's like an atomic bomb in your brain. Your brain has to recover. And if you don't, if you don't
Access
fall
to
into
other
those
stuff.
impulses that are real coming from the brain, they will dissolve. Your brain stops trusting its own impulse and it will rewire.
And the hole, if you ever go through it again, the hole is never as big. It's never as
Oh,
bad.
no, because you know how those holes begin.
Yeah, exactly.
You
know how
know,
not to pick up.
you're like, no, I'm just going to be real. I'm going to be the truth of who I am, and I'm willing to lose, I'm willing to be judged, I'm willing for someone to think they're better than me. I don't care. I'm just going to be truthful. It just doesn't make sense to put on a facade ever again or to have a dependency. You want to go into vulnerability because that's really the truth and you're okay with the outcome, whether it's good or bad or you lose or win, that it doesn't really matter. That strength doesn't come from the outcome. Strength comes from the process.
Yeah, from letting it go.
Yeah.
So it seemed to me that this is something that I need to do before I even attempt to do another protocol to reset my body.
For sure. Yeah, the protocol, if you go through this, right, what happens to that need for food?
It's gone.
It just goes away. It's now functional. And you can now think how you want to eat, with your gut issues, and you've got all this intelligence. That's the coolest part when you kind of like the phoenix part of this is you're not just starting life over with lacking intelligence. You have all of this wisdom, intelligence about your body that you now learned, that you now know. And it's like, that there is balance, that, that it's not all or nothing. You know your body's tolerances, you understand it, and you now can care for it in a loving and graceful way.
Yeah.
Not in a strict and harsh way.
And then give it the chance to let it reboot itself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, And when you're there, that's probably when I would do another round. If your body doesn't naturally heal itself in the first place, because, that's the other thing you haven't really been open to is if you get rid of the whole protocol, just stop worrying. Don't even make it an option right now. It's not, just don't worry about it. Okay. If you go through this, what I'm talking to you about, now you release all of your beliefs. Now, who are you if you don't have the perfect body? Can you accept the body you have? And if you were to start over with food, knowing what you know now about what your tolerances are, where your limits are, right? And you eat to hunger, which is based around your body, right? If you just stay truthful to the integrity of your body with food and with exercise and with sleep and with everything that it needs to be cared with, can you accept whatever the truth is to that?
Because something, my body will just go and be happy.
Who knows? You kind of have to get rid of the outcome expectation. This is why I tell people, don't assume you're going to lose anything because the body you have right now. This is the truth. If you look in the mirror, you have the truth, right? It's the truth of what you've been doing. Wouldn't you agree? Mm-hmm. All of your ailments, a lot of the gut issues is an outcome of people who binge. Okay? Can you start loving your body and accept whatever it shows up? I mean, can you say, screw my past and all that belief and what I used to be and what everybody used to tell me because none of it matters. I'm going to start over, and whatever my body does, I will love and accept it, because if I live in the integrity of the way I need to eat, and I hold myself accountable to not binge ever again because I don't need it anymore, right? And to know I'm not going to diet anymore because I feel like shit about myself, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to eat.
What I want when I'm hungry.
I'm going to eat with integrity. I'm going to stay with integrity. I'm going to be truthful to my body. If my body says I'm hungry, I will eat. If it says I need this, I will eat it. I'm going to do the best I can to be truthful about my body's signals. Would you then be willing to accept the outcome, whatever it is? You know, all too often we get people who say, well, I'll do what my body says, but I'm not cool unless it looks like this.
I don't have a choice right now to take care of it.
But does that make sense? Where people,
yeah, totally.
Okay, yeah, and I see it a lot. And most people though, when they have that belief, they say, well, I'm going to live with integrity with my body most of the time.
So I can squish it back into this box.
Yeah, because I know that most of the time, or the areas of my life that aren't most of the time, I will diet to fix that. So we can eliminate that from the equation, and I won't have to admit that I have an issue with food. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So okay. And
right now it's hard because there's so much stuff, like with the stuff that, I'm eating fermented vegetables, I'm eating all this interesting stuff. I can't have any gluten. So it's in a sense, it's hitting me in every which way. To eat a healthy, so I've been vegetarian vegan for a long time, but I'll eat fish. But so now with this protocol for the leaky gut, it really is no nuts, which were a big thing for me, a muncher, so it's really, the healing process has cut out so much stuff that I can't go to.
Well, and what is that forcing you to question then on the other side of your beliefs around food?
Everything.
I know. Like you might want to question your beliefs that are rigid. Because you're now getting pinholed into a very tiny, tiny area because you have certain beliefs that you're not willing to adjust. So if you were to start over, how much of this crap is a bunch of fake lies? If you could start over, what would be different?
So much. What I find is important versus what it's not important. How to make me happy. What
start
I
over.
Like.
Well, yeah, you kind of need to start questioning those things. If you were to start over, and it's not about competition and hierarchies and who's better than who and judgment and shame, how do you want to eat? What's the truth of what you want to do for the rest of your life, keeping in mind the stuff you got to do to heal?
I wouldn't even know.
Do you like to start with, what type of fruits do you like?
Yeah, exactly.
What type of vegetables? Do you want meat? Do you want more than just, if you really need to question that area too. Would you open yourself up to be able to have, a variety of fish, a variety, and maybe pork, who knows, but start over. And let go of this, I'm a vegan. How much ego is in that? There probably was.
It's ridiculous.
Yes.
Exactly.
Let it go. Because I think for you to heal this psychological illness, which is now an illness in the brain, and we could actually go in there and go, look, your brain looks like shit. Well, it's because of all this. So let's get rid of the stuff that creates the illness. The ego, the control, the identity crap. Let it go and start over. And what's the truth? Just start over. I want to be able to have
learn the truth.
You're the creator of it, and it's just stay true to your integrity. Don't try to meet some facade or some belief system. Just be truthful to yourself and give yourself the grace to be able to just be whatever it is, and don't judge it.
Don't judge it. Yeah.
Well, you know as well as I do that in order to judge something, you have to have a belief system or an expectation. A rule. You have to have rules. Right?
Yep.
So that's
And just basically right now, if I want it, eat it.
yes.
It fits into like, yeah.
Yeah. And then let go of this whole weight outcome. Don't worry about it because it doesn't matter. You need to learn how to eat that is has integrity. Essentially, you have a lot of disease, you have a lot of issues, and there's no integrity. Does that make sense?
Yeah. But that's easy once you kind of admit that. It's like, okay, fine, now I can just kind of like, I'm sitting on my ass. And
Yeah, it's like saying, yeah, you know what, I kind of sucked. Yeah, that was a big fail, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah, okay.
I lost, and I'm okay. I don't have to have this fake, I don't have to prove anything. I can just be okay.
I don't blame her for anything.
No.
I don't need to blame me.
No, you can just say, you know what? Yeah, I was trying to feel better about myself, so I took on this crazy identity.
It didn't work.
No, and it actually made things worse. And it made you feel like shit about yourself. And all it did was create a bunch of judgment and self-hatred and hating other people and judging other people. That's a lot to manage. You know, if you give yourself all this leniency to just be truthful to yourself, you know what's really great? Is that you start to see other people and you want them to have the same freedoms. Wouldn't you agree? If you're gay, be gay. Who cares? If you're liberal, be liberal. If you're conservative, be conservative. You're allowed to be stupid.
Just be what you want.
Correct. And take and take responsibility for your bullshit that's created from your beliefs. Don't blame anybody else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. This is good.
I know, right? It's like, oh, I can just be myself and I don't have to care about anybody's opinion.
Can I keep working with you, please?
I guess so.
With
Yeah, I work with people. Well, and I'm now in Alabama. I'm not even in a clinic. So yes, we can continue to work together.
I thought you were in Minnesota.
Well, I moved. This summer. Yeah, I moved this summer. I'm now in Birmingham, Alabama. So I'm at home. I'm taking care of my dog, which is super high maintenance. I have a high maintenance dog. And taking care of the kids, and my husband travels, so I'm home alone a lot. It kind of sucks, but whatever. And that's why I'm writing right now too. It's like I gotta write because I'm going crazy.
I write for a magazine that's out of Birmingham called Flower Magazine.
How cool!
Yeah, and they're down there, and I was supposed to be down there in February, but I'll think I'm going to go next year.
All right. Well, when you come down here, if I'm still here, we'll meet.
Get there?
I do. You know, it's different. It's very different culture.